Now, podcasting around the world, this is Zero Context.
All right, man. How's it going? How you been? We're just going to start now. You know, that's just how I start all the podcasts now.
No, I've been pretty good. Last year was a bit hectic, but this year's getting starting off a bit better than last year did, with Corona and all that. I just got off a job working for a university over on the west side of Japan, and that was like for a week. And then I headed to Osaka with my partner, and we had a bit of like a 3-day holiday in Osaka. Went to like Universal Studios Japan, went to Kyoto, just kind of roamed around, and yeah, it was a good time. But yeah, no, been pretty good so far. How about you?
Sounds pretty cute. I'm good, man. I haven't been too bad. Just been trying to get this podcast off the ground. You know, you said you're doing some work for a university. What were you doing for a university?
So basically, it's like so it's for the university, but it's also for like their kind of abroad program. So they're trying to get more people to come from abroad to the university. So we went in and kind of like interviewed all like the professors and that, and also did like a whole bunch of B-roll around like the university and around like the different classes and the labs, just showing off like all the cool technology they have, and like the kind of life in the university kind of thing, to try to appease people overseas to get them to come over.
Okay, well, that's really interesting. How did you land a gig like that?
So I met this guy called Richard at like a networking dinner thing, and then I've been working with him quite a bit. So I've done a bunch of. He's like more in the news industry, but he also does commercials every now and then. So I worked with him so the first thing I worked with him on was the thing with JAXA and NASA. JAXA is like Japan's version of NASA.
Okay,
and
right.
Then
that's really cool.
the second thing was with Instagram and Facebook, and then he got me onto this one as well. So yeah, I've been working with him like quite closely over the past half a year, about 6 months now. Yeah.
Okay, right. Are you still doing a fair bit of work in the film industry? Because I see that you've been pretty active, but I've seen it's been very like all over the place. Like you're doing some weeks you'll be doing it, some weeks you won't be.
Yeah. So like I said, like last year was like really kind of like hit and miss kind of thing. Like I had like about 3 months worth of work just completely swept out from underneath me, which is not a good feeling. But like I said, it's been picking up now. I did my first feature film. I was on my first feature film at the end of last year in September/November for like a month and a half, which was really, really fun. I wasn't like anything like camera assistant or like DOP or anything like that. I was actually pretty much just the driver, equipment driver for the camera department. But still, it was a great experience nonetheless. It let me actually like see what it was like to work on a feature film. I got to help out here and there, like building like dollies and jibs, and in some cases like camera assisting, which was really fun. And the whole thing was it was all in Japanese. So the whole crew was in Japanese. I was the only English speaker there, so that like really forced me to use my Japanese, and I learned quite a lot during that 6 weeks, month and a half. Yeah, I learned so much. So that was a lot of fun. And then after that, I've just been doing a lot more. I usually do more commercial work now than I do more film stuff, but been doing a little bit of film stuff here and there, more short films and passion projects. But yeah.
Okay, nice. With like when you're on film sets and stuff like that, you were just saying that the majority of the people there speak Japanese. Like, what's roughly the percentage of people who actually can speak English on sets like them? On sets like that, I should say.
So most of the commercials that I do, I usually like from foreign clients. So like I said, I've worked with like NASA and Facebook and Instagram and all that, and they're all like foreign clients, and they're also like foreign agencies that set them up. So usually when I get on set, it's a mostly English speaking crew. So a lot of the sets that I do jump on are mostly English speaking, or a good 50-50. But that was the first one that I actually got on where it was all Japanese, and it was hard, but at the same time, it was like it was a good challenge, and there was only a few times where I was really stuck and I didn't know what to do, but other times my Japanese has improved quite a bit over the past 2 years, and if I did get stuck on anything, there's always Google Translate that I was able to utilize. So yeah, it was pretty good.
Okay. Because you moved to Japan a year and a half ago, 2 years ago. How long has it been?
It's coming up to 2 years now. I moved over in April of 2019.
Okay. And did you move over there with the intention of actually trying to get into the film industry, or are you just looking to change things up a bit?
No, I actually came over with the intent to like be an English teacher. Like a lot of foreigners come over here and like just teach English because it's one of the easiest jobs to get off the get go. But yeah, so that was my initial goal, was just to come over here and then start teaching English. But I was lucky enough to get a job with Cutting Edge Japan.
Oh, that's right.
Do you remember Cutting Edge?
Yeah, I totally forgot about that. Yeah.
Yeah. So that was really fortunate. I remember we had like a contact in the Australian government, with like one of the Japanese offices of the Australian like government, like their export or import or something like that. We had like a connection in there, and yeah, they were like, I was like, hey, I'm coming over. I'm like a part of like I work in film and TV and all that. Is there any like Australian or like foreign kind of production companies or post production companies that you know? And they're like, yeah, we'll have a look out for you. And then they're like, oh, do you know this company called Cutting Edge? And I was like, yeah, I know Cutting Edge. Like, our university was like in their old, their original building up in Brisbane, and also Demi works at Cutting Edge. So I knew a few people from Cutting Edge, back in Australia. And I was like, yeah, I definitely know them. So I got an interview with them. And, yeah, luckily I started off, working with them just on like a freelance basis. And then I got a freelance contract. So it was basically, I was working full time for them, but still under like a freelance, like a temp kind of contract. And yeah, and I worked with them on that contract for about 6 months before switching back to freelance. Yeah.
Okay. I've had a position like that in the past where it's like people will employ you, but they won't employ you. You'll basically be like a subcontract for them, and I think they get away with a lot of things, like they don't have to pay super and a lot of things like that, which I'll be honest, I'm not a big fan of, but you know, go do what you gotta do.
Yeah, like the pay was definitely good. The pay was definitely good, especially for Japan. Like Japan's pay compared to like Australia's pay is very, very like low. But in saying that, when you look at like how things are priced over here, it kind of like are just like kind of suitable.
Yep.
But like you said, like it was more of like a freelance contractor. So yeah, they didn't have to pay my pension. They didn't have to pay like insurance or like for transport and all that kind of stuff. They were just like, yeah, we'll just give you a monthly wage.
Okay. Oh, so you weren't even paid per project. It was a monthly wage. That's very interesting, actually.
Yeah, it was a monthly wage. I think because the reason that they wanted to bring me on was because like I was costing them too much money as a freelancer, because there was just so much work coming in at that time. And they were like, hey bro, you're like, we love working with you and all that, but it's getting to the point where it's like, it's costing us a bit too much money to keep hiring you like every single time. Would you want to come on as like a freelance, like a full-time freelance? And they were like, would be your wage and all that kind of stuff. And I was like, yeah, definitely. Like, I'm always happier. It's weird. I'm kind of taking a different, direction from you. Like you've gone from like full-time work into freelance, and I'm trying to like slowly get out of the freelance industry into like more full-time, especially around these times. And I'm like, because like, I know it's just so much, it felt a lot more secure, especially when I just got into Japan. They'd be like, hey, here's a 6-month contract. I was like, yep, I'm going to take it. It was good pay and all that. And I knew I was like secure for 6 months. I didn't have to worry about any of that kind of stuff. Any like kind of like, am I going to be able to pay rent? Am I going to have to go back home? Yada, yada, yada. I was good for 6 months. So I was really happy for that. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, don't get me wrong. Like there's a lot of pros and cons to like doing freelancing. Like, you know, money can be great, but at the same time, like, you know, you can't pay your super. I guess you can, but there's a lot of things you need to set up. Like, you know, there's so much stuff that needs to be done in the background to enable you to do that. And, once you do it in a setup, like, it's cool, like, you can just run with it. But, I can definitely see why people, like, you, for example, that wants to get into more full-time work, because it's a lot more comfortable. You don't need to constantly go out and look for work. It's like there ready for you. And with like with the contract that you had, was it more of a retainer situation? So like regardless of the amount of work you did, like let's say you did no videos, they had no videos for you at all to do, would you still get paid a certain amount, or is it still okay, you have to do at least this amount of videos?
No. It was like I was working full time.
Oh,
It was like I was getting the same wage for the whole 6 months. Basically, yeah, it was like I would come in every single day. Like I wasn't just like working as a cameraman at this point. I was working as like a co-producer, as a location scout. Like I was basically working them like full time and just working. And also to also like give more context, Cutting Edge also had like a sister company called Mr. Positive. That was their production side.
Oh, okay. I've never heard
Cutting
of that
Edge.
before.
Cutting Edge is only Mr. Positive is only a Japan and I think Korea based production company.
Okay.
And the reason that like they kind of teamed up as like sister companies or something like that, or like I wouldn't say sister companies, but more like in association, is because the CEO of Mr. Positive was the creative director at Cutting Edge Japan. So
right.
And Cutting Edge is a post production company. So the CEO of Mr. Positive was like, well, why don't we start up a production company and start getting like production work and doing production work, and then we can also hand that production work straight back to Cutting Edge. And it was like kind of like a two-way like deal. Like if Cutting Edge got like a post-production job, they could be like, oh well, if you want to have like, do you have like the production already set up? And if the client was like, oh no, we're still looking for a production company, they go, well, we work very closely with Mr. Positive, and it was like let's work with them, and it was very seamless that way. So I was employed by Cutting Edge Japan, but I worked for both because they worked at the same office. They worked on the same kind of jobs and all that, and I was basically doing the exact same work while working at two companies essentially.
Yep. Okay. And I remember you saying, we were having a chat about this a few months ago about how, COVID affected a lot of film, like industries, and the film industry was definitely like 100% affected. Your position at Cutting Edge, was that affected because of COVID, or were you already finishing up before COVID was a thing?
So I think I finished up my contract in, I believe it was September or November I'm getting my months mixed up. Around November, around that later part of like 2019, I finished up my contract. Okay. COVID hadn't yet hit by that time, but I was still like working with them on like a freelance basis. But at that time, a lot of things had kind of slowed down a little bit. Usually going into that time, things over here do slow down a little bit. But yeah, and then like I said, as things started to pick back up, I had a lot of jobs booked with them and other production companies, but mostly with them over the kind of the March to May kind of period.
Yep.
And then all of a sudden, when COVID hit, everything just got basically cancelled, wiped out, because a lot of they're a international production company, so they service a lot of international clients, and so with a lot of the other production companies and agencies that I work for, most of their clients are from overseas. So basically, when COVID hit, they couldn't get the clients couldn't get over here. A lot of the DPs and directors and all of that they usually hire are from overseas, and they usually fly them into for the shoot. They couldn't get any of them. So basically, since everything went on lockdown and all the borders shut, there was just no way. Like half our whole crew essentially just got cut, like basically in half.
Oh
So yeah,
shit.
that's why everything got cancelled.
Okay.
Yeah.
And how are you guys dealing with COVID at the moment? Because we currently in Australia, I don't know if you've seen, we're slowly rolling out the vaccine. I think at the current time
Yeah.
we're recording this, we've done 100, and I think they're hoping to have 1,000 done by the end of the week. So they're doing it
Oh
fairly,
wow.
yeah, they're doing it fairly quickly. And I think I can't be too sure on this, but I did hear that they're wanting to have every adult who's willing to get the vaccine done over the age of 18 vaccinated by October of this year. So it's,
Damn.
you got 20, 25 million people. Oh, obviously you got like less than that because of the age gap. But yeah, like we're rolling it out fairly quickly. Do you guys have like a similar situation over there at the moment?
Not
No.
really. No, Japan's like I love Japan. I love it. I'm half Japanese for like anyone that doesn't know. I'm half Japanese, and like Japan's like basically my second home. But there's just like every other country or any other place. I definitely have a love-hate relationship with Japan. And one of the things that kind of gets rubs me the wrong way about Japan is just about how bureaucratic it is.
Hmm.
It's just like to get anything done here, there's just so much red tape that you have to go through, and that's why we're last to basically everything. Like even Japan like leads the world in like technology research and a lot of like science and a lot of that kind of stuff, but we're literally one of the last countries to ever implement it because
Oh,
of just
okay.
like how legislation works over here, how bureaucratic everything is over here. It's like for example, like um, credit cards and FPOS literally wasn't a thing that was widely accepted in Japan until like 5 years ago.
Oh, really? Jesus.
Yeah, if you had come over here in like 2015 and you went to go pay with someone with a credit card, unless you were at like a jewelry store or like a high-end hotel or like a very like a big chain kind of thing, they would be like, nah, cash, 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 cash. Everything was cash. Even at some electronic stores, and I'm like, you're trying to buy like a lens that's like $1,000 or something. They're like, no, we only take cash. And you're like, what are you talking about? Like, I'm not just gonna carry around $1,000 in my back pocket.
Fucking
Like, what? No.
$5,000. Yeah, no biggie.
Yeah, pretty much. So yeah, that was So tying that back into the vaccine, like I think Japan's had contracts with like Oxford and like all like the leading and like who is it? Who are the two main COVID vaccine producers?
I hadn't had a
Pfizer
Pfizer. Yeah,
and
start with a
and
Z.
one more.
Start with a Z.
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, so I'm pretty sure Japan's had contracts with them to get the vaccine for like before this year started, but it's just like the whole rollout of that, it's just so bureaucratic, and I think they're only just starting to get around to it. I think no, I don't even think they've gotten around to it. I think their first vaccine, they're aiming to get the first vaccines out by the end of this month or next month.
Oh god, I thought you were about to say this year. I'm like, Jesus, you guys are that far behind. Do you think
Yeah,
that,
no.
do you think there's like a pros and cons to that type of system though? Because obviously, like, a lot of people are concerned about this vaccine, given the fact that it took less than 12 months to develop. Do you think that like Japan kind of has a point by waiting it out just to make sure there's no side effects? I, for one, need to clarify that like, the moment I'm able to get that vaccine, I'm getting it. Like, I don't just putting that out there. Like, I'm not against it. I'm 100% getting that thing.
That's like me too. Like once I'm able to get it, I'm 100%
Yeah.
getting it. It's just like I'm just gonna feel more secure. I'm gonna be able to walk out of my house with less of a worry that I might like get the COVID and not be able to work for the next month and a half.
Well, did you see on the news? There was like a bunch of protests all across Australia. There was ones in Perth, Melbourne, Brisbane, and like I think that one of the hosts from MasterChef went to the protest in Brisbane, basically protesting against the vaccine, saying it's too soon. It's not.
Really?
Yeah. I just saw it. And I'm like, what the fuck? Like, and my thought process towards the whole thing is the fact that why on earth would they just develop it and just like give it out without actually putting it through the test? Like, of course the thing has been
Yeah.
tested. They would not release this to the fucking world without it being tested,
Without, yeah. See, like that's the thing. Like everyone says it's like I was reading like kind of like an article slash study the other day. Sorry, my phone keeps going off. Give me a second.
You're fine.
And
I actually have a no phones rule with for the people who have come on already. I've told everyone to keep your phones off. But you're all
I'm going
good.
to turn it to do not disturb.
You're fine.
It keeps like buzzing on my desk and it keeps annoying me. But yeah. Anyway, back to what I was saying. Like yeah, I was reading this like article slash study I think last week, and they were outlining like why it was so fast. And basically, they were saying that like I'm no doctor or anything like that, but basically what these guys were saying was like these doctors were saying was the reason it was so fast is because they had the funding. They had so much funding to put to drop everything else and just attack this one thing. Like there was just so much funding behind it that they could do it. Where like other vaccines, like for like other like smaller kind of like diseases that come out. Like first you need to build up the funding to be able to do it, and once you and that can take like a year, maybe 2 years to finally build up the funding to actually start like research and development on the thing, and then maybe, and also at the same time you can't put everyone towards that one vaccine, because like of course you got to develop the other things, like the scientists, and they've got to develop like other drugs to help like for other diseases and all like that, and like they might be going through clinical trials for another thing, like so they had to be out, so they have to like kind of like attack it very slowly for other vaccines, and then finally once they get all the funding and they get all the research and development done with a smaller team and all that kind of stuff, then yeah, that's why it takes usually 3 to 4 years, and then they can go into clinical trials. But the reason that this one was just so fast is because like it's a pandemic.
We need it. We literally need this thing.
Yeah, it was literally a pandemic, and like governments and other like governments and like corporations and everything were just throwing money at scientists, be like, we need a vaccine so we can go back to like normal lives kind of thing. And that's why like scientists and like pharmaceutical companies and kind of like that were able to drop everything, well not drop everything they were doing, but they were able to put a lot more manpower onto finding a cure for this. And it wasn't just like, if you look at like other vaccines that are being developed, it's like there's only like 1 or 2 kind of people or kind of companies or whatever, like groups researching the vaccine, where if you look at this, it was like everyone all over the world, like every single major university in every single country was trying to get a vaccine. Those private corporations like Pfizer and all that, all working towards a vaccine. Like everyone was putting everything they got at this vaccine. And like that's why it was so fast, and people were sharing information. There was a lot more.
Well, there was a lot more because there's been millions and millions of cases around the world. So of course they have people they can have a look at people and be like, okay, you've had COVID. What did it do to you? There's a lot of people you can evaluate a lot of people and you can find the source a lot easier. That's just my opinion. Again, I'm not a doctor either, but that's just the way I see it.
I'm good. Yeah, they probably had a lot more data and all that kind of stuff, and just I think the main thing that this article hit on was just like the funding, the amount of funding and support that they got from governments and corporations was why it was so quick. It just allowed them to, instead of just being like, oh hey, we're going to put this small team onto this, we're going to literally put everything we got at this, and instead of just that happening with like 2 or 3 groups, it was like the whole world, and everyone was sharing like their research and kind of that kind of stuff. And like, that's why it was so quick. But like, they still went through clinical trials. They still went through the 3 stages of clinical trials. Like they still tested, I think, what did they said? What did this article say? They tested something like 144,000 people.
Jesus.
Went through the trial for the Pfizer vaccine or something like that. Something like that. I don't know the number off the top of my head, but like, they went through the trials to make sure everything was safe. Yes, it got developed very, very quickly because of the funding and everything like that. But when it came to the trials and like making sure it's safe, they took the same amount of time as basically every other vaccine or new drug coming out in the market would have to go through.
Yeah. Yeah, that's right. Have you heard of the couple here in think it was the Gold Coast? These two an elderly couple. They were given 4 times the amount of the vaccine that they were supposed to. Did you hear about that?
No.
I think this happened
Well,
yesterday.
how did that even happen?
I think it happened yesterday or the day before. But yeah, like the doctor, because the vials that they come in, like one vial isn't actually a single dose. I think it is literally like 2 doses or 4 doses. But yeah, a single vial is not 1 dose. And this doctor mustn't have known that, and I guess he just injected them. And I think they might have realized that, because, they don't have too many of these things, so they got to be very careful with it. I think they realized, wait, where are these other vaccines? Oh, they're in those 2 people. Okay. But
Oh, no.
so, the doctor's apparently been stood down. There's been no side effects. The elderly couple haven't received any side effects, which is fucking good.
Yeah,
Like,
it's a good sign, yeah.
Yeah. So, when all these people out here protesting about the vaccine, it's like, well, there's an elderly couple who is, at risk of COVID. It's a high risk of getting COVID. They've gotten 4 times the amount of what they should have. They don't have any side effects. So, and isn't this vaccine as well? Because I don't know if it's the Pfizer. Is that how you say it? Pfizer?
Pfizer.
Yeah. I don't know if it's that one or the other one, or it might be both, that you need to get 2 shots. So you have the first initial shot, and then you need to go back 2 weeks later and get the next one.
Yeah. I think that's how both of them work.
Okay.
Actually.
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
I as you can tell, I haven't really done too much research on it, but yeah, no, when I actually found, I don't know when they'll be rolling it out, because obviously at the moment they're rolling it out to at-risk people. So, you got like the nurses, nursing homes, doctors, I guess. So, I actually don't know when I myself will be able to get it. I can imagine probably by, I want to say July, maybe, but
hopefully.
yeah, no, I really couldn't be too sure on when we get it, but yeah. No, that's really interesting that Japan's going to be so far behind on it. That's actually really interesting. I didn't even know they were that behind on other things as well.
Yeah, like it's crazy. Like Japan's going through, especially with this whole coronavirus, reforming of the way that we go about just general daily life has really hit Japan kind of hard, because Japan is a country that doesn't tend to change. That's why they didn't implement FPOS until literally they had it, but it wasn't widely accepted. But it was the reason why it wasn't widely accepted until 5 years ago. It's the reason why most companies and corporations and offices still use fax machines. It's still why Post is one of the biggest, most thriving government industries in Japan. It's Japan doesn't really
what is Post? What's that?
Post, mail.
Post mail. Sorry, I thought that's what you meant.
Yeah.
But I didn't know what you meant. Sorry.
Yeah, in Japan, the mail is so efficient.
Really?
You'll send something one day and it will be received the next. It's the maximum time it will take to get somewhere is 2 days.
Okay.
Amazon, always 1 day shipping. It's insane. The post in Japan is one of the most efficient postage systems in the world. It's incredible.
Okay.
But at the same time, that's very representative of it's so efficient and good because it's the only thing that we use pretty much.
Yeah, literally.
But yeah, and it's just Japan's taking this massive hit because when COVID first hit, and we don't have lockdowns over here. So there's no such thing as a lockdown, you have to stay home kind of thing. There's state of emergencies, which don't really do much. They're just hey, things are getting bad. Let's not be idiots and go outside kind of thing. But it's nothing that's enforced. But at the same time, a lot of companies and stuff were hey, everyone, let's start working home. Let's do what we call they call over here telework.
Telework.
Which is telephone working.
Oh, right.
Short for telephone working, but basically means work at home.
Yeah.
But yeah, so all the companies are oh, we have to start working at home. But at the same time, no company or not many companies had the infrastructure to be able to do that, because like I said, Japan doesn't change. So they were still working mostly with hard files, hard copies of everything. they were mostly working with post and fax machines. So they didn't really use that much like computer based stuff. So like, and all the time, all the meetings were always held in person, and they're like Japan's always like renowned for like these really long drawn out meetings where like people like that don't even need to be in there, are just sitting in the conference room for like an hour and a half being like, this has nothing to do with me or my department. Why am I
Just
here?
looks professional, you know?
Yeah, basically, yeah, they just want to have like 50 people sitting in the boardroom, even though that like only like 10 people need to be there. Yeah. So like, yeah, so when this hit, like it was like really hard because like everyone had to start, like, it sounds so like weird and kind of stupid when I would say this, but like everyone had to start learning how to use email. Everyone had to start learning how to use Google Drive and
Dropbox all the way, guys.
Online, yeah, Google Drive, Dropbox, like online, like online file sharing methods. People had to learn how to use like things like Skype and Zoom because they had to do like online meetings, like, and that was like a major thing that like a big part of the Japanese workforce did not know how to do. Like there was like my friend worked at a Japanese company, and he said it was utter hell for the first like 3 to 4 months. It was hell. Like like people would be like, oh hey, so like I need to send this thing, but I need to send it by fax. So how do I do that? Do I have to go to the store? Oh no, do I have to go to my office and fax it, like just and fax it there? Because I don't have a fax machine at home. No one has a fax machine at home. They only have fax machines at the office. So everyone's like, so how do we receive our like faxes? Like, how do we do this? Do we have to go into the office just to receive or send a fax? And it's like, also like with post, it's like, oh, we're receiving like a document from this other company about something. And this document needs to be signed by 3 or 4 different people. That's another thing about Japan, like bureaucracy. Like I said, it's like not one person can be like, yep, that's good. It's like, I need to look at it. I need to pass it over to my coworker. They then have to pass it over to our manager. That manager has to pass it on to their manager. And then maybe 2 other managers will look at it, and then it has to get signed off for each person and then sent back. And it's insane. So yeah, at the same time, people were like sending in mail and like, so what do we do? Do I have to go pick up that mail from the office, come back, sign it or read over it, sign it, and then repost it to my coworker? Or do I just drop it back off at the office? Or how does this work? How are we exchanging documents now? Because we can't just walk over to each other's desk. So everyone was like, it was utter hell for like the first 3 months while they learned how to be like, hey, there's a thing called email. Hey, there's online sharing now. Hey, there's Zoom. Like, yeah, it was a very big kind of learning experience for Japan. And I think in some sense, it's good that Japan went through this, because it's kind of like woken Japan up.
I was just about to say that. Do you feel like this is actually a positive thing? Because it's kind of like opening Japan up to, you know, easier possibilities.
Yeah, definitely. I think it's definitely like taken, like it was a surprise for everyone, but I think especially for Japan, because I think it's reminded Japan that they can't just sit in like one era and be there forever. They need to adapt and change in order for things like this not to happen in the future, because so many companies went under because they weren't able to adapt in time.
Yeah.
There was just so many companies that had to be shut down, a lot of small businesses and stuff like that couldn't change their workforce or how they work in time, and they ended up going under, which is really unfortunate, because like it's like in our, like in a Western society, like it seems like something just so simple, but like in Japan it kind of wasn't.
I also kind of disagree with the fact that, there are a lot of people like, I don't know what it is in Japan, but we've got a thing over here called job seeker, sorry.
Job keeper, yeah.
Yeah, well, there's job seeker and there's job seeker and job keeper.
Yeah.
Job seeker is for people who obviously don't have jobs, and they just get a certain amount each week or each fortnight. There's been I've heard that there was a lot of people who run and own businesses that say, you know, we're actually hiring, we're in desperate need of you know, workers, and no one wants to come in and work because you have a lot of people who sit at home, aren't willing to actually try and apply for jobs and try and look for work, and they're just happy, you know, just collecting income from the government, you know, and
don't we call them like dole bludgers or
dole
something?
bludgers, yeah. Like we can call, oh, Jesus Christ, we can, you know, call it whatever you want. They're dole bludgers, but I think they just put the word, you know, job seeker to make it sound really fancy. But you know, it's the same situation. You know, there's a lot of people out there who don't really want to get work because they're happy. And I've explained to a lot of people, you know, I can't relate to that at all. It's like I can't imagine sitting at home all day. Yeah, cool, you get money, but like, don't you get fucking bored? You know?
Yeah, like that's the same with me. Like at this time, like I'm not going out much because of Corona. Like I don't want to risk it at this time. Like I try to stay home as much as possible. I don't really go out that much. Given I did just go to Osaka for like 3 days, but that's like, I think that's the first kind of vacation that me and my partner have done in like the past year. I think the last time we did something was for my birthday back in like April of last year, and so that's the last time we've done like anything kind of like big or anything. Like yeah, there's like the occasional, like we'll go out and have like a dinner sometimes here and there, but like most of the days I'm trying to stay at home as much as possible unless I'm working. But at the same time, I've got to do something. Like I've been learning how to code. I've like set up my whole studio. I'm filming like little spec ads every now and then. I'm considering getting into streaming and stuff like that. I'm always like researching or like doing something, because no, I couldn't just sit here and do nothing all day. It would drive me insane.
Yeah, I'm exactly the same. That's the reason why I started a podcast. Honestly, it's, you know, like, yeah, I got the videography thing, but you know, you can only do that for a while until you get bored. So I'm like, okay, let's throw something in to mix it up a bit. But yeah,
especially when you work, or when your hobby becomes work.
Yes. I don't know about you, but I love what I do. But, you know, I think there are certain things that may potentially aren't really the best things to become your job. Don't get me wrong, like, this is great. I love doing videography as a job, but at the same time, there's a little spark that just isn't there anymore. I know it sounds depressing when I say this, but like, you know, I still love it still. It's still great, but at the same time, you know what I mean?
Yeah, no, I definitely get what you mean. Like when I first, a
lot of people don't get what I mean. Sometimes I explain things and they're just like, "What the fuck are you talking about, Sam?" Sorry, go on.
Yeah. Other people in another industry would probably look at our work and be like, "How can you not love that?" Like, you basically just like you're a cameraman. Like that looks like so much fun. You get to travel for work. You get to like do this. Like the pay's really good when there's actual work, and I feel like a lot of people would look at like what we do and be like, what? How do you not enjoy that like 100% of the time? But like, yeah, no, there's definitely like times where I'm just like, I don't even want to look at a camera.
Yeah, over the Christmas break, I literally packed up all of my, because I finished up on the 14th of December, and I texted all my clients. I'm like, hey, I'll see you next year. And I packed, literally, and I packed all my stuff in boxes and put all my stuff on the shelf, and didn't turn anything on, didn't charge anything for a good solid 3 weeks. So it's good. It's good to reset.
That was like me when I first came to Japan. Like I quit my job in Australia, as a lead videographer on a marketing team for like an Australian company, and mainly the reason I quit that job was just because I was doing the same thing over and over and over again, and like it wasn't like just like videography. It was like I was filming the exact same video, just with like different subjects, and it was just the same thing over. And oh yeah, it was horrible. Like for the first 3 months, it was fine. I liked it because it was my first job like out of university, and I was learning a lot. I was a part of a marketing team. I was seeing how they were marketing the videos and doing all that kind of stuff. I saw the process and all that. And I also just bought a gimbal for the job, and I was learning how to use that and learning how to get good shots and that, like, and doing a lot of research. And the first 3 months was fantastic. Even though I was doing pretty much the same thing over and over again, I was still learning so much. But after that 3 months, I hit a brick wall, and I wasn't learning anything, and that's when it got really, really boring for me. And after that job, until like I started working for Cutting Edge and Mr. Positive over here, I literally, I still did photography, but I didn't do any video. I like my camera was like permanently in the manual photography mode. I was like, I didn't want to even touch video. I didn't want to touch like I didn't open Premiere for like 4 months. I was like, nope.
I hear that a lot from people, friends of mine who work in real estate. They say that, you know, they look for other work, or they try and do similar work like videography, but just don't film properties every day. Cause you know, it's the same situation as you. It's just, all you do is film properties, which, you know, I do, you know, a decent chunk of my work is properties, but at the same time I do like a million other things as well. So, and it's the repetitiveness of doing the same thing over and over again that just sounds so daunting. Seriously, it is.
That is definitely one reason I love freelancing though, is because there's just so much opportunity for like different kinds of work, like being able to like shoot property one day and then maybe shoot like a fashion shoot the next day, and then shoot a product shoot for Coca-Cola or whoever the next day. Like there's just so much variety and stuff that you can probably get into. And like, that's one thing I love about freelance, that I'm a little bit scared to walk away from once I like go back into full time. Because full time, it's kind of like you're working for a company, that company's got their products or their services. Basically, that's what your whole kind of creative inspiration or creative like kind of creations will revolve around. That's basically what your work will revolve around, is like the company's products and services. And I feel like that can be a little bit repetitive. Yeah.
I don't think it's repetitive. I think the big thing for me, and the reason why one of the reasons why I got into freelancing in the first place was travel. Travel's a big thing for me. Like, you know, if I can, because I love traveling, and, you know, the way I saw it is, you know, if I can travel, but also get paid for it, like it works out pretty well. Like, you know, and especially like I do projects. I think we're basically doing a project every year in my hometown in Collinsville. And they'll book me out, and they'll go up and I'll film for like a week, and then I end up staying for another extra week just because, you know, it's a bit of a holiday, plus they pay for the accommodation, travel, everything like that. And
I know
there's that aspect that I like. And like, kind of coming back to the Jamie Oliver thing, like I shot the Brisbane Jamie Oliver, and we were supposed to shoot the Adelaide one like 2 or 3 weeks later. And I think I contacted like Josh and Alf to see if they wanted to hang out. But unfortunately, you know, because of COVID, everything just everything just shut down, unfortunately. But, you know, there's a lot of pros and cons to doing what we do. But at the same time, it's difficult to explain to people why we don't like it at the same time. Like, I don't think anyone really likes staying up until 3, 4, 5 in the morning just to get an edit done to deliver on a client to keep them happy. Like, and that rarely happens with me, but you know,
I'm a little bit of, I'm fine working at night. I think I work best at night because there's less distractions. During the day, I find it very hard to work because like phone, like notifications, everyone's up, like I'm getting messages, like the day's just going through as it normally does. I live with my partner, so like there's a lot of distractions during the day. And I feel like at night, after everyone's gone to bed, I can literally just sit down, have an energy drink, and just buckle down and get to work. And sometimes like, I'll just edit, and then I'll look at the time. I'm like, oh wow, it's like
3
5,
in the morning.
6 a.m. in the morning. I'm like, oh, I should probably go to sleep. But yeah. But like, actually touching on what you were saying about travel. Travel's like, I think I've traveled in around Japan more as a job than I have for like personal vacation.
Really?
Like, the first time I went to Osaka, which was like just around this time last month, the first time I've ever gone to Osaka was for work. The first time I went to Kanazawa, which was the one that I just did for the university, that was my first time, and it was for work. The first time I've been down to Shizuoka and a lot of other like places. It was just for work. There was like the amount of times that I've traveled to places for the first time has been for work, and even places that I've been like multiple times before, I've been there again this year or last year for work. I traveled for work more last year than I did just like personally. And
Jeez.
actually, I think I traveled more last year for work than I have traveled over the past like 2 years.
Did you do that much
Prior to
travel?
that.
Did you do that much traveling when you're here in Australia at all?
Um, yes and no. When I worked for that other company, I was constantly flying down to Melbourne and back up to Brisbane and all that to film for like the other branches. But other than that, not really, because as you know, Australia's got a lot of nothing.
Yeah.
But like at the same time, like every weekend I was always going like on kind of like road trips with like my mates and all that to like cool photo like locations and stuff like that. So I guess it wasn't really by like plane or anything. It was more by car, and usually wasn't for like five like 5 or 6 hour drives or something. It was more like 2 or 3 hour drives. But yeah, like we're always going to new places in and around Sydney. Like most weekends to like photography and stuff like that. So if you count that as travel, then yeah, I was doing a lot. But if you're talking more about like traveling overseas and like going to like Melbourne and like Adelaide and
That's
all
not
that kind of
overseas.
stuff, then and yeah, overseas and yeah, no,
Yeah.
not that. Yeah.
When can we expect you back in Australia? Obviously after COVID's finished.
Yeah.
I feel like
hopefully-
I feel like I ask you this every like 2 months. I
Yeah,
ask, when the
every
fuck are
time.
you coming back to Australia?
I don't know. Yeah, it's just like I want to come back so bad, and I also want to bring my partner. I want to bring her to Australia to finally to introduce her to everyone and show her what my hometown and my growing up was like and my home country is like, and like yeah, I really really want to come back, but it's just a case of COVID. Hopefully, once we can get vaccines, I don't know when that's going to happen, but if we manage to get vaccines, hopefully there'll be some kind of thing with like Australian immigration, not immigration, but Australian borders where it's like, hey, we're closed, but if you have the vaccine, you can come in. And if that's a thing, then hopefully we can come in by the end of the year or something like that, early next year. But yeah, it really just depends on what the whole kind of like COVID and border situations are like. Yeah,
And
but
when
definitely first chance I get, I'll be coming back over. Yeah.
and when you say you come back over, is that come back to stay or is it just to purely visit and catch up with family and friends?
For the time being, it'll probably mostly just be to visit.
Okay.
I
Totally move
think
back.
yeah, no, we are definitely planning to move back. We are planning to move back, but I'm not sure when that will be.
Yep.
I think because at the same time, like I want to get my partner I want to, and I need to get her permanent residency in order
Yeah.
for us to actually live in Australia. Otherwise, she's gonna have to go back and forth like every 3 months, and then she won't be able to work and stuff like that. Like, yeah, and to do that, like we've done research on that, and it's like if we apply overseas, it will take up to 18 months. But if we do apply in Australia, it will take up to 21 months. So it's still like
Really?
a year and a half.
Jesus.
Yeah, it's so long. So like it will take by the time we apply, it will take a good year and a half after that to get an answer.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. So I think we are hoping to apply sometime this year. But that would mean I'm still over here until mid 2023.
It's a long time.
It's funny because yeah, it's a long time. It was like my initial plan was only to come over here for 2 years. So like my initial plan, had I stick to it, I would be back in Australia right now. I would have come over here for 2 years, done everything that I wanted to do, which I can probably say at this point I've done everything that I initially set out to do in Japan. And yeah, I would have been back in Australia, probably teaming up with you or with Josh and Alfonso and like Alfred and everyone, every other creative that I know back in Australia. I would have been back and working with all you guys. But
that's the thing.
no,
That's the thing that makes me really sad. The fact that you say that is like, because I think I've mentioned to you in the past that, you know, it would have been really cool for you to be over here, because we would have actually. I would have honestly, I would have loved to go into business with you, like working like together. Like fuck, that would have been so good.
Definitely, same with me, man. Like when I saw you like get into freelancing and all that stuff, I was like, oh, I wish I was back over in Australia. Like I think seeing you go back into freelance when a lot of our friends are going into more full-time work was like a thing where I was like, I wish I was back in Australia where I could team up with Sam. Like, yeah. Especially like I know like I'd love to work with Alfonso and Josh and that, but they work for both for the same company, so being able to work with them would be a little bit harder and stuff like that. But like I think like going into business with you, or at least be like working alongside you, would have been like really, really cool. And I hope we can still do that when I get back.
Yeah, no, dude, definitely. Like honestly, like I'll be doing this for years. So when you come over here in 10 years, like let's definitely team up together, you know.
10 years.
Last time I spoke to Josh, because I think I wish I spoke to Josh a little bit more. I spoke to him on the phone a few months ago, and he was like I was just telling him like everything that I've been doing and stuff like that, and I kept on saying to him, I'm like, man, like I think what you're doing is really cool, but fuck, like if you ever want to come over to Brisbane and go into business together would be pretty cool. Same with Alf, like fuck, man, like the four of us would have killed it, I reckon. Like seriously, like, we would have fucking killed it.
I know, like that's why I said like when I was talking to my partner about when we move over and where we're going to live, I'm like, I want to move back to Brisbane, and the reason for that is because I have so many connections in Brisbane that I can just go back to Brisbane and just get straight back to work. And like I have so many friends there, I have so many industry like connections over there. Like it's a really good place to go back into. I've got and like I got you, and I think it's a really good not opportunity, but instead of moving back into Sydney or moving to Melbourne or something like that, I wanna move back to Brisbane, because it's like it's a place that I know, it's a place that I love, it's a place that I have people and friends that I can work with, and I think that's the first thing that we're gonna do, is we're gonna move back to Brisbane.
Yeah.
When we do eventually move back, yeah.
Yeah, no, that'll be cool, man. Like I said in the last podcast that I have really mixed feelings about living in Brisbane at the moment, just because it's the whole being complacent thing. You know, you stay in one place for a while, kind of gets a little bit, but you know, I feel like I just need a bit of a break. But I honestly can imagine myself being here and still kicking it in a few years. The issue as well with living and freelancing and then wanting to move, you kind of need to drop all your clientele and then try and pick it up somewhere else, which is I've considered it as well. Like I've thought about it for 2 minutes about potentially moving up to like maybe like Airlie Beach, Mackay, Townsville, that kind of. I'm not doing that anymore. I that thought went out of my head, you know, as fast as it came in. But it's so difficult. You have to start
from scratch.
Yeah, no, literally you would, and you know, it's it's a gamble. Like, will you be able to get as much work? I guarantee you won't. Like, it's Brisbane's, like you said, there's so much opportunity here. And it's, you know, Melbourne and Sydney's got, you know, opportunities as well, but it's, I don't know, it's just something about Brisbane I like. I really do. I honestly do like Brisbane. So everyone who's saying, so you're fucking contradicting yourself, I actually do like Brisbane. I really do.
Yeah, it's like, I love Brisbane as well. I think Brisbane was like the first place I moved to by myself. Like I moved out of home to Brisbane. So Brisbane's always got a special place in my heart. And I think Brisbane also really prepared me for living in Sydney and living in Tokyo. Like if I hadn't have lived in Brisbane and moved straight to Sydney, I don't think I would have been able to do it. I think I would have lived there for like maybe 2 or 3 months and would have been like, no, I can't do this. I'm going home. Like Brisbane for me, it was a really nice stepping stone because it's a city, but at the same time, it's not as crazy as some of like as Sydney and like Tokyo is there. And so it was a nice ease into what city life would be while still having like kind of like some of those laid back aspects of like the more urban areas like where I grew up in.
Oh yeah, absolutely. There's a ton of areas like that, like West End, for example. West End has such a laid back, chilled vibe. It's really, really cool. But
And then you can just go across the river back into the CBD and you can feel like you're in a city again. Like that's why I love it. It's like you can feel laid back, but there's still also that drive to kind of like to keep going, to push a bit more. And I love that kind of connection. It's not like one overpowers the other, where once you move to Sydney, it's like there's not much of that laid back vibe. It's just go, or get out of my way.
yeah.
It's like, it's very kind of like, that's like the atmosphere there. And same with Tokyo. It was kind of funny. I was listening to your last podcast, and like you and Kate were like, yeah, Brisbane's is like a huge place. It's like it's a massive city, and I'm like sitting in Tokyo, like, bro, come over here.
I think we were more comparing it to the Whitsundays and stuff like that. Like the Whitsundays has
definitely
like a couple thousand, as opposed to you
Yeah.
know, 2 million. I don't know. I actually don't know how many people are in Brisbane. I should probably look that up. But Brisbane's cool. I'll be here for a while. But yeah, but I think we might actually wrap it up there, man. To be honest, you're
All right, man.
I'll cut this little bit out just real quick. Fuck, like I love talking to you. Like nothing against Gilly and Caden, but fuck me, like you can talk. You can actually have a conversation. Like Gilly and Caden are like, oh man.
Sometimes I think I talk too
know.
much though. Sometimes like half times through this, I'm like, am I chatting too much? I'm like thinking of like what all your viewers are gonna say. I'm like, wait, are they just gonna be like, he never shuts up?
Oh yeah, like I think about that a lot. Like whenever when we record, I'm like, I probably shouldn't have said that. And then usually I cut things out, which I think people not necessarily that I'm saying anything bad, but people just won't understand what I'm trying to say. But no,
if I tend to.
Oh yeah, sorry.
If you find me in like the edit and like I've like repeated the same thing like 2 or 3 times, just like cut that.
Cut that whole section out.
Because,
no, you're fine, man. Well, honestly, like
go over. Yeah.
No, well, like I said this in the last podcast as well. It's so interesting looking back at the podcast because everyone I probably watch the podcast more than anyone else as well. Like because I've got to sit there, I've got to make sure this is right, this is correct, and stuff like that. But yeah, that's cool. Thank you for coming on though. Like it's actually really cool, and
no problem.
I'm pretty sure I'll actually ask you to come on again. To be honest, if you're keen, I'd love for you to come back on.
Definitely. It was a lot of fun. Yeah, I'd love to come back on, and maybe after I move and maybe after I start working, once I get into like a full-time job, and then I can like compare freelancing to full-time. Like I'd definitely be happy to come back on. Yeah, definitely.
I actually had an idea. You know what? We should try. I'll get in contact with them, but we should see if we can do a 4-person podcast with you, me, Josh, and Alf. I think that'd be really fucking cool.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah,
definitely. I reckon that'd be cool. It would it's either going to be really cool or it's going to be an absolute shit show where everyone's just going to be roasting and memeing on each other.
Talking over the top of each other. No, it's going to be great. I'm actually supposed to do an Alf only podcast soon. So
yeah,
I
was talking here to him like literally just before this podcast, like while you getting ready and all that. I was video calling him and he's like, oh yeah, I'm supposed to be going on Sam's podcast like in a week or so, and I was like, oh fuck yeah, that's awesome.
Anyway, thank you again, and did you want to plug any of your socials at all?
Yeah, so my name's Sean Maguire. I'm at Shawnee Maguire on Instagram, and I believe at Sean Maguire Film everywhere else.
I'll chuck
I kind of need to update.
I was gonna say I'll chuck your links in the description so people can go check it out.
Yeah.
But
but
oh, sorry.
My main things are Instagram at Shawnee Maguire, website Sean Maguire Film, and Twitter at Sean Maguire Film. So, yeah.
Simple, straight to the point. I like it. Anyway, thank you very much, man. And we will see you on the next one. Bye. Thanks, everyone.